Hello, and welcome to your Week 5 Lesson 1 video. So today we're going to look at some new Linux commands, and we're also going to look at redirection and the dev null file and the here document. And then in your Lesson 2 video we're going to look at piping. We're actually going to look a little bit at piping in your Lesson 1 video too. So the new commands we're looking at this week are tr, cut, and WC. So tr is translate, cut, well, does obviously what it sounds like, and we'll look at that, and WC is word count. We're also going to look at the concepts of in terms of redirection of standard output, standard input, and standard error, and your various different redirection symbols. So we're going to use the greater than, less than symbols on their own, or with two together, and the differences between what those mean, and how to redirect standard error. That's what this does. And the dev null file in the here document, which is particularly useful. And all of this maps to Investigation 1 in your Week 5 tutorial, and review questions 1 to 4. And I apologize, my beagle is going absolutely crazy upstairs right now. So hopefully that wasn't too distracting. I'm going to pause for a minute. Alright, Gemma seems to have settled a little bit, so let's try continuing on. So new commands we're going to look at this week, as promised, tr, which stands for translate, and that's used to translate characters into different characters. It's used pretty commonly in bash scripting, but we can do things like translate lowercase characters to uppercase characters, or vice versa. We can also translate spaces to tabs, or spaces to semicolons, or if you have a CSV file, a comma-separated value file, you could translate the comma into a space or a tab, and display it out on the screen, or redirect that to a different file. All kinds of just ideas on where you might want to use these. Cut. You use this to extract particular fields and characters from output. So we could use the -C option to cut specifically characters. Otherwise, it's going to cut all kinds of information. And C, you need a range of numbers. So if you want 5 characters, you would just see -C 1 to 5. -F indicates the field number that you wish to display. And you may want to use the -D option, which specifies the delimiter. Without this, your default delimiter is a tab. So this one here, cut C 1 to 5, that would be the first 5 characters from a file name, a file called file name. Or this one here, cut D, so we're setting the delimiter here to a colon, the second field in that file. And we're going to look at some examples of these, so they'll make more sense when we get to looking at the examples, I think. Word count, WC, will give you the number of words, and you can use this with various options. But it'll count the file, so it'll give you -L if you want the number of lines in a file, which could be useful. -W for the number of words, and -C for the number of characters. And we're gonna use these all. I think they will make a lot more sense when we actually look at things. So let's pull up our matrix. Bear with me momentarily. Here we go. So I have a file here called words.txt, to which I've entered just a bunch of different words. And some of them are varieties in different words. We might use this a few times this semester, so I'm going to kind of leave it kicking around. So we can obviously see that with cat. Now, not needed here in terms of redirection. We can redirect into cat as well. And we can redirect content from this, which we're gonna look at in a little bit, not necessarily from cat. So let's say we want to translate all lowercase characters to uppercase in our words.txt file. Well, we could use tr. What do we want to translate? A to z to A to Z uppercase. Hold on. Let's try that. So this is involving a little bit of redirection. Or redirection, piping. So we're going to learn about piping in lesson 2, but all you really need to know to understand this and the other commands we're going to learn about piping in lesson 1 are that it takes the output of the first command and pipes it into the second. And I'm not sure why this one didn't particularly work, but here's a different way of doing the same thing. And the easiest way to build up complex piped commands is one command at a time. You can modify your output until you get the desired output and then layer on the next thing. And we're literally going to do that in a couple commands. We could alternatively sort. So you see we've sorted this alphabetically now, and then redirect the output to a file. And let's take a look at that file, and then we'll clear our screen. So let's use the, this kind of gives you some samples of translating and redirection. We're going to look at redirection in a wee bit. Cut. So let's say we want the first 5 characters in words.txt on each line. So that's going to give us exactly that. What if we wanted 4? Well, we could do 1 to 4. And there you go, it's removed anything that's longer than 4 characters, it's just cut the first 4. Anything that's shorter than 4 characters, well, of course, we got the whole line. Finally, let's look at the who command. So this shows us who's online. Well, let's sort that to, or redirect that to users.txt. And we're just going to cat that out. I think that's everything thus far. Yeah. That's everything so far. So redirection is a way of taking the output from your standard output, which is usually your screen, and redirecting it somewhere else. You can redirect the input, you can redirect the output, and for both of these use some special characters, some meta characters. You can redirect things into another file, which is what you commonly do with the angle brackets, or another program, or another command, which we're going to look at in lesson 2 using the pipe symbol. We're actually going to look a little bit into that. And if you want some interesting redirection samples, there's a link here. Go have a look. There's all kinds of useful, interesting ways we can use redirection. So standard input is simply a term that describes where a command gets its input from. This can be the command line. This can be displayed on the the terminal or from a file. It really depends. But this character here, this, I can never remember which is a greater than and which is a less than. I always just remember Pac-Man eats the bigger number. Will redirect standard input into a command, going this way. It will only apply to Unix and Linux commands that can accept standard in, like cat, more, less, sort, grep, unique, head, tail, translate, cut, and word count, which we've learned all about all of these so far. So for example, we can translate and redirect into it words.txt. We can cat and redirect into cat abc.txt. Of course, this is unnecessary in this particular form, but if you want to do some more advanced funky piping and redirection, then this might be useful. And the same thing here, we can sort the contents of xyz.txt. Standard output describes where a command sends its output. So we use the other symbol, the opposite of our redirection from standard in. So this will redirect the standard output of a command into a new file if it doesn't exist. If a file with that name does exist, it will overwrite the file, the contents of the file. You got to be careful with this. If you use two of those characters, it will create a new file if it doesn't exist. But if it does exist, it will append the content to the bottom of the file, so it will add it to the bottom of the existing file. This could be particularly useful, and you're going to use whichever one of these makes sense in context. We're going to look at some examples of this shortly that will make this all make a wee bit of sense. And then finally, we can redirect standard error too. So when you get a command or execute a command and you get errors with that command, you normally see that in your command line, right? In your terminal. But you can redirect that as well and send the error, if there's any error at all, from your commands elsewhere. And that might be useful. And we can do the same thing here. We can redirect and overwrite the file using the to and that symbol, or we can redirect and append to that file using the to and to of that symbol. And commonly what you're going to end up doing is sending this to dev null, which is the black hole in Linux. It's a special file. It's in the dev directory, so that's our devices directory. And it just discards everything that you send to it, whether it's standard out or standard error. And you can even redirect in from dev null, and it will give you nothing, which can be kind of neat. And then, of course, the here document, which will redirect any command within that command line. This is commonly used in bash scripting. You may want to format some particular output for a file or to attach to an email with some outputs of commands and stuff. So you can do this by simply using cat, redirect into cat, specify a special symbol. So in this case, everything until we see a plus sign will be redirected into the cat command. And you can also redirect this out to a file on the same line, which is how we're going to look at it in a little bit. So let's take a look at all of these. Oops, I wanted this. I didn't necessarily want to get rid of that. So I'm going to clear this. So I'm just going to give you an ls-l, and we have some output that we created earlier. Let's say we want to we don't want to see that. We want to send it to a file. Well, we can do that. And maybe we want to attach this file to an email or something. Whoops, I have my redirection symbol going the wrong way. And then we can cat. See, I didn't get anything on my screen. I redirected standard output to that file. And if I look at detail listing, I have it there. I could do things like this, echo contents of bin. So this would give my file a useful title at the top, sort of thing. And let's take a look at that, see what we got. So we just got literally the string that we have there. You do this a lot in bash scripting if you're trying to capture some information from the system. It's sometimes useful to put in a meaningful set of words above it, describing what that information is, so when you're looking at it later, it doesn't just look like gibberish. Now let's take a look at the output from bin. Now we don't want that, right? We want to redirect that into our file, but we don't want to get what's already, or get rid of what's already there. So we're going to use 2 of that symbol and redirect our output. And then I can take a look, and there it all is. That seems like a lot of text. So let's just use head and tail. There we go. We have the top 10. Whoops, and we have the, if we use tail, we get the bottom 10. That could be interesting. Let's look at what happens when we redirect standard error. So I'm going to execute a command. You should know this by default will not run, right? It's all in caps. Commands are case sensitive. So let's see what happens when we redirect standard error. To this file here. Whoops. It helps if you use the right symbol. That should have been a 2, not a... See, I got no output on my command prompt. But if I go look at error messages.txt, everything's there. Now let's try another one. Whoops. This is what happens when you hit up and go too far. And I'm going to double append that. And then cat our error messages file again. And see, we got... our error appended to the file. So it didn't overwrite the contents that are in there. It just gave us that output. So let's see what we got. We got some stuff in here. Let's say we want to take an ls of that. Maybe we want to redirect that to files.txt. Then we can word count with lines, files.txt. And there we have 8 lines in there. Maybe we want to word count characters. See how many characters we have in that file. And then maybe we just want to get rid of that stuff entirely. So we can cat dev null and redirect that to files.txt. And then if we cat files.txt, see we've cleared our file. So all kinds of useful things in there. And we'll show you an example of redirecting standard error. So we're looking for something called temp file, which of course doesn't exist, right? We're going to see lots of errors in there. Whoops. We don't want to see that output. So let's redirect our standard error. I just killed that. And we're going to send it to the black hole. We're going to send it to dev null. And that's going to take a few minutes and run. And I'm actually just going to kill that. Oh, and look, it actually found something called temp file. I'm just going to kill that with Control C because that's taking a while. But you get the idea, I think. And then finally, let's do some redirection. Just going to clear my command prompt so we can see what's going on. So we're going to cat. We're going to redirect into this until the plus sign. And we're going to send this to long output.text. Now notice it's still waiting for input. I hit enter, I'm on a new prompt. My username is user. The node I am currently connected to is, we're just going to pull some stuff out of global variables. And then we're done. And we can cat that file. So there you go. Oh, and it's done twice because I didn't clear up my sample from before where I was messing around with this. But there you have it. Some useful examples of redirection. And we are going to continue on. So we've seen all of these things. We did standard in, standard out, both. To get further practice with these concepts, you can work on tutorial 5, investigation 1, which will give you some redirection basics, and these will map to practice questions 1 to 4. Take care, be safe. I will see you all in the next video, and of course in class this week. Thank you for watching.